Hari Om Tat Sat. Welcome to Jyotirmayananda Society, a journey to self-realization. Please subscribe for the mystical meanings of the scriptures and to enjoy daily satsang with us. We are currently exploring the book Yoga of Perfection, which is a summary of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Commentaries by Swami Jyotirmayananda Maharaj, narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So let's continue. Yesterday we had started shloka number 65, chapter number 2. So I will repeat the shloka again, and we will today get into the different stages of samadhi or meditation and going deeper into our meditation practice. So the shloka is प्रसादे सर्वदुःखानां हानिरस्योपजायते प्रसन्नचेतसो याशु बुद्धिः परयवतिष्ठते. So let's explain. We had studied the basic meaning that of this shloka. In that peace of the mind, all sorrows are brought to their cessation. So sorrows terminate because the intellect of the blissful minded sage becomes established in Brahman. So that is only possible when we dive deeper into our being through meditation. And as we said, there are different stages, 7 stages of samadhi that are experienced by advanced spiritual aspirants and yogis, but even beginners can start and then gradually make their way up. But the different forms of samadhi are savitarka samadhi. This samadhi pertains to the physical plane of objects, samadhi with material things. And second stage is nirviktarka samadhi, when the mind is able to see clear distinction between name, form and idea of an object. So it is able to separate the name in the meditation, and then the form, and then also what the object is about. So you get deeper and deeper insights about the object you are meditating upon. So this is called nirvitarka samadhi, meaning there is no confusion in this stage. Whereas in savitarka, the first samadhi, there is confusion because you see all those things as one. For example, the word apple. Apple is a word, but it's also an object. So if I say an apple, immediately you'll think of the apple and the taste and so on, and different kinds of apples. So most people go through that stage where they are not able to differentiate the word, separate it from the object, and separate that from the experience or the idea. So the second stage, or nirvikalpa samadhi, is without confusion. There is no confusion. You know that the word is the word, the object is the object, and your experience is its relationship between the two. Moving on to the next samadhi, it's called savichara samadhi. Vichar means thoughts. So when the mind rises beyond the gross plane of existence and discovers the reality of the subtle elements underlying all gross manifestations, it is experiencing savichara or reflective samadhi. So you basically go deeper into the object and let your thoughts flow into it, trying to transcend time and space. So you are no longer at the gross level, you are going into the subtle elements underlying the gross level. For example, water is something you drink and it's cool and you can feel it, but if you are experimenting, you will know it's H2O, or 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen that makes up this water. So that is how you are able to go deeper in any object you look at. You go deeper into it through savichara samadhi. Moving on to the fourth, nirvichara samadhi. When the mind transcends the awareness of time and space, it enters into nirvichara samadhi. So thinking upon those objects, you certainly rise beyond that, and therefore there are no thought waves at all in that state. So there is no more vichar coming in, no more thoughts coming in. So that is a beautiful progress in the fourth stage, where the thought cease. And the fifth is sananda samadhi, when the mind rises beyond the subtle elements and communes with the cosmic plane of the higher mind, which is also known as Hiranyagarbha, or the golden womb through which the creation occurs. It is filled with bliss. That's why it's called sananda. Sananda means with bliss. So this is why you may see many yogis meditating for hours on together without any movement, because the bliss they are experiencing is so strong that it keeps on flowing and they don't feel like getting out of that beautiful state. So this is called sananda, or joyous samadhi. Moving on to the next samadhi is called Sasmita Samadhi. This is the sixth state. So, when the mind communes, individual mind doing the samadhi, doing the meditation, when it communes with the cosmic mind meaning Hiranyagarbha, and is able to rise beyond the basis of the ego center, then it is experiencing Sasmita Samadhi. Because for most people, the ego is fairly active and fairly troublesome on this path. But on the sixth stage, we are able to rise beyond the ego. So, what happens there? The experience of the pure identity of the deeper self in the form of I am. So you have risen beyond the ego, and now it's basically very close to the self, your real identity of who you are. I am, not the false ego or the mind or the intellect or the senses or these objects. So that is that sixth state, and that state is very close to our pure self. And then finally, the seventh state is called asampragyat samadhi. When Sasmita Samadhi is perfected, the samadhi where the I am feeling is there, the mind becomes highly purified. The impressions of samadhi destroy the impressions of the egoistic functions of the mind. Therefore, there arises intuitive vision of the self, which transcends the very mind stuff of the yogi. So there is a whole transformational process going on, and at that level, it also becomes nirbij samadhi. Therefore, there is no seed. That is that last stage of samadhi that gets us into the state of enlightenment. So, going deeper, a yogi develops paravairagya, or supreme dispassion, through intuitive knowledge, or prajna. Prajna is intuitive knowledge through deeper inner experiences. He is able to renounce the mind as well as the three gunas of which the world is constituted. Three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, and the mind that is affected by the gunas. So, in this state, you have risen above all these things. When the mind is purified by the waters of samadhi, it is called prasanna, or blissful. That is the state. It is like a lake without ripples, reflecting the vastness of the self. Avidya, or ignorance, is the root cause of all miseries. Avidya, or ignorance, gives rise to lack of intuitive knowledge, or it is called aviveka, not using our knowledge properly. Due to absence of intuitive knowledge, there arises egoism. Egoism gives rise to attachment and hatred. The impressions of attachment and hatred lead to karmic involvements, and karmas lead to embodiment, and embodiment leads to endless sufferings and sorrows. So, as you can see, it's a chain reaction, and therefore, these five kleshas, we call them, or five impediments that keep us chained to the cycles of life and death: avidya, Ignorance, asmita, ego, raga, attachment, dvesha, hatred, and abhinivesha klesha, or fear, fear of death. So once we understand this process properly, we can consciously solve this problem of ignorance and thereby terminate the cycles of perpetual misery. Therefore, when the mind is purified through samadhi, the intuitive vision rises and the veil of ignorance is destroyed. The intellect of a sage becomes intuitive. That's called prajna. It cannot move towards the objects of the world. It penetrates the illusory name and forms and discovers that the self is the only reality, the self that is beyond all this material plane of body, mind, senses, intellect, ego, worldly objects, things that you see, all that. The movement of the mind towards objects is known as Vishayakar Vritti. Vishaya is composed of vish, and vish means poison, and that's why the senses are also known as Vishay. So, Vishyakar Vritti is checked by increasing spiritual wisdom. It is known as Brahmakar Vritti. So, Vritti are thought waves. So, the thought waves that keep us tied to the worldly process and the things of attachment are called Vishyakar because they eventually end in our downfall and degrade us, whereas pure and sattvic thoughts, thoughts of God, are known as Brahmakara Vritti and they take us towards Brahman. The mind's movement is promoted towards Godhood, Brahmanhood. So, when the mind is highly purified, this Brahmakara Vritti becomes fully established and it flows on unobstructedly, like a candle flame that is steady or the river that is flowing. Therefore, an aspirant must endeavor to control the senses and to promote the peaceful movement of samadhi in his mind. So, in tomorrow's satsang, we will pick up shloka number 66 of chapter number 2. This is Swami Nikhilananda. Hari Om Tat Sat.